Is there an echo that you hear?
Not really. Since the room is empty, there is little bit, but it's not distracting. Other feedbacks, please, if other people can say.
Pranam Swamiji. It's okay, Swamiji.
All right. If it's good, it's fine. Is there an echo that you? चलो ठीक है. ॐ यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वम् यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तमहदेवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशम् मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. ॐ नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्मविद्या सम्प्रदायकर्तृभ्यो वंशऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः. सर्वोपप्लवरहितः प्रज्ञानघनः प्रत्यगर्थो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि. ॐ वेदान्तार्थविभासकाय गुरवे शान्ताय सन्न्यासिने नानावादी नगेन्द्रसङ्घपवये योगीन्द्रवन्द्याय च मोहध्वान्तदिवाकराय भगवत्पादाभिधां बिभ्रते तस्मै भाष्यकृते नमोऽस्तु सततं पूर्णाय बोधात्मने. महादेव महादेव. Though we have seen verse number 64, but there are some finer points which I want to bring to your notice, fetched from the Shankararandi Tika. And then we will go to the next verse. So let us recite the verse number 64 first, and then look at its, the finer points as given by Swami Shankararanda. रागद्वेषवियुक्तैस्तु विषयानिन्द्रियैश्चरन् आत्मवश्यैर्विधेयात्मा प्रसादमधिगच्छति. In giving the introduction to this verse, Swami Shankarananda says that why even Bhagavan Shri Krishna is giving this particular verse. What is it? With what is the intention behind saying this? Whatever is going to follow in the next verse. He says, Nanu indriyaihi vishayagrahanabhave vidushaha katham sharira yatram setsyati. Now, if the indriyas, now the word indriya, we all know, it means the karmendriyas as well as the jnanendriyas, both included. And so the organs of action or the organs of perception, if they are not going to be involved in their transactions, they are withdrawn from their objects, then how would even the life or the basic transactions which are required to sustain the body also can be carried on by the Jivan Mukta, by this Sthita Prajna? How would that also be possible? This is the question. Iti akamshayam tat prakaram samadhim anutishtataha chitta prasadam cha pratipadayati. Now, this particular verse, which is an answer to this question, because we have seen the one whose indriyas are under control, where the indriyas no longer crave and chase the objects, and therefore, since there is no such craving, no such longing, no such demand, therefore his indriyas now have given up the objects. So such a person who, and this is the lakshana of the sthita prajna. Okay, tasya prajna pratishtita. Beginning from the very first verse where Bhagavan Shri Krishna starts defining the sthita prajna. This is one very important characteristic which we find as like a music, like a drone in the music. So, answering this question, one more point is forwarded by Shri Krishna, that how his Sharira Yatra, how the sustenance of this body also takes place. How does he survive? A. And B. The second thing which is conveyed by this verse is that samadhim antishtataha, the one who is now, what do they call? Samadhi nishtha. One who is samadhi nishtha, one who is committed to the samadhi. For him, chitta prasadam, the tranquility, the clarity of his mind, is the mind which is free from all disturbances, mind which has disassociated itself, where from the ragadveshas, meaning the ragadveshas have been washed away, and so such a calm, pure mind. In such pure mind, there is tranquility, there is peace. These are the 2 points which this particular verse is going to give. The tranquility which is attained by such a Mahatma, A, and B, how does he conduct himself in this world to sustain the body for the sake of Sharira Yatra. Okay. Itya akamshayam tat prakaram. Tat prakaram means Sharira Yatra prakaram cha nityam samadhim anutishtataha chitta prasadam cha pratipadayati Bhagavan. So, ragadvesha viyuktaihi indriyaihi atmavashyaihi indriyaihi. Now, all these have gone as the adjectives to the word indriya. So we all are endowed with the indriyas. So also the Jivan Mukta. So also the Sthita Prajna has these indriyas. Not that the hands and legs are not functioning. Very much there. All the Jnanendriyas, Karmendriyas are in their place. But a very important thing about that is Ragadvesha Viyuktaihi Indriyaihi Atmavashyaihi Indriyaihi. So the Indriyas have 2 things. Now they are no longer in the slavery. Since they are no longer in the slavery of Ragadveshas, these Indriyas are called as the Indriyas which are mastered. So Atmavashyaihi, they are in his control. So, Atmavashyahi Indriyaihi. And the other adjective is Ragadvesha Vyuktaihi Indriyaihi. The Indriyas from which the Ragadveshas, the Indriyas which have disassociated themselves from the Ragadveshas. And what is the meaning of disassociation from the Ragadveshas? Obviously, of course, the Ragadveshas are something which is the likes and dislikes, the tendencies, the silent, what do they call? The silent but powerful tendencies which stay subconsciously, unconsciously, and shape our responses and behavior are these are the vasanas. And so what has happened? Vyukta, disassociation, the Indriyas have disassociated from these ragadveshas. What kind of disassociation is this? Because these ragadveshas will naturally dwell in the mind. If they are there in the mind, then the earlier shloka also has conveyed Rasopiyasya nivartate, param drishtva nivartate. The one now who is habituated to again and again look at the glory of the self, to look at that reality, that param vastu, that what is supreme, the ragadveshas also become ineffectual and eventually wither away. Okay. Now, so the ragadveshas have gone away from the mind. This going away of the ragadveshas from the mind is the disassociation of the indriyas from ragadveshas, because the ragadveshas no longer will be able to associate. They have gone away, it has gone, it is destroyed, withered away, faded out. So ragadvesha viyuktaihi indriyaihi. And the second thing about the indriyas is atmavashyahi indriyaihi vishayan charan. And this is how he moves about in the world of objects. So what is this world? It is collection of shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha. What else what else is this world? So moves in this world. Though these indriyas, the eyes are seeing colors and forms, the ears are also picking up the stimulus of the sound. If there is a chili, the tongue will also be able to detect it. If there is a smell, the nose will be able to detect it. But there is no form of any attachment or any hatred towards anything. Ragadvesha vyuktaihi atmavashyahi indriyaihi vishayanshcharan. This is how he moves about in the world. So now he obviously is accepting certain vishayas. But again, we must know, Bhashyakara Bhagavan has said avarjaniya, those which are unavoidable. And furthermore, even people like Ramaraya Kavi, etc., even Shankarananji also says that avarjaniyan, unavoidable, means those which have been sanctioned by the Shastra. Certain vishayas are sanctioned for the grihasthas, but that does not mean it has a sanction for the sannyasi. So avarjaniyan, we have to take into consideration this entire unavoidable. That unavoidable means that it is something, it also should be shastriyam, sanctioned by the Shastra. Remember this. Ragadvesha vyuktaistu ragadveshayoho bijam vishayeshu ishtatva anishtatva buddhireva. Shankarananji says, the seed, even for the ragadveshas, from where do these ragadveshas begin? We acquire some new, and we have already come into this world from our past lives, bringing these ragadveshas with us. But what is the very seed? From where do these begin? And he says, the vishayeshu ishtatva anishtatva buddhihi. The bijam, the seed, the very beginning, the very cause of raga dveshas is the idea that vishayas are ishta or anishta, that the world in some form is desirable and world in some forms is avoidable or should be avoided. Okay, so therefore, Vishayeshu Ishtatva, Anishtatva Buddhi. This it is again the play of Buddhi, that going to say or to see or to visualize something is good for me, Shobhanam, it is good for me, then he would want it. And something is not good, so he wants now to do away with it. And therefore, something is heyam, upadeyam, because it is ishta and anishta. So ishtatva anishtatva buddhi eva dosha. How does that go? So there are two aspects to it. In the first thing, dosha darshanena, and in the second thing, param drishtva nivartate. Remember this. Both of them are important. Okay, so when we will have Paramatma Sakshatkar, only then the Raga Dveshas will go. Till then we are going to maintain it. No need. Dosha darshanena. So now look at that. Dosha darshanena tasyam parityaktayam indriyani. So now whenever a person now is able to see even the defects of what? Of these Ishta Buddhi and Anishta Buddhi, Dosha Darshanena, then this Ishta Buddhi, Anishta Buddhi, which is happening in the world, that also goes away. Generally, we have an intense hatred towards people who have someday or sometime, knowingly, unknowingly, intentionally, unintentionally, dishonor us or insult us, disrespect us. So in that case, we will be harboring hatred towards such people. Over here, dosha darshanam is not the dosha darshana of that person. The dosha darshana is of this anishta buddhi. So how do you see that then? Then one says that, well, if somebody insults, obviously it is tukkaroop, but by doing so, this person has taken away some load of papas from my life. He has burnt certain sins from my life by doing so. And thus, because he has helped me in eradicating the load, the burden of this papa, now my marga, my path towards Brahma Sakshatkar, he has helped in making it clear. So he is good. There was one saint from Maharashtra, Sant Tukaram Maharaj. There is one line that he has written. He says that of such a person who nindaka se ghara asavesheta. He says, a person who constantly keeps on criticizing me, oh God, give me a neighbor like that who will always criticize me. And by that, people require soap and detergent to wash and clean. Here is a fellow who is doing it for me free of charge by showing my defects. So my character, my buddhi, my everything, he is cleaning it. And therefore there is no need even to hate anyone. So dosha darshanena. So if one keeps on seeing the dosha of the anishta buddhi or the dosha of the ishta buddhi also, now with such a thing, the raga dveshas will be neutralized. The raga dveshas will be neutralized. Thus the mind has become pure, and such a pure mind, which is always associated with the indriyas, then Because there are no more ragadveshas in that mind, the ragadveshas cannot associate themselves with the indriyas. This then is called as disassociation of the ragadveshas. Okay. So how does Bhagavan Shri Krishna says? Ragadvesha viyuktaihi indriyaihi. How are the indriyas? Those indriyas from whom the ragadveshas are disassociated. Ragadvesha viyuktaihi indriyaihi. And the second one about the indriyas is atmavashaihi. And therefore, since these ragadveshas are no longer in the slavery of the the indriyas are no longer under the slavery of ragadveshas, they remain loyal to the person. And therefore, atmavashaihi, they are under his control, and therefore they are at peace. So such a person now, where the ragadveshas are no longer polluting the mind, the indriyas are no longer chasing the objects outside, he attains inner peace. This peace, this calmness, this tranquility, this clarity, then Bhagavan Shri Krishna calls it as prasad. Such a person attains this divine quality called as prasad. There is prasad inside him. The prasad means just don't think about, some fruit or a sweet that you collect from the temple. Okay, so prasadam adhigachati. This is the prasad of God that we want. Okay. Vishayastu asatva tuchatva bandhakatva buddhya ragadveshabhyam viyojitaihi. Vishayeshu. Now again and again, when the person is able to see the defects of the vishayas, one is the defect of the the ishta buddhi, anishta buddhi, also the defects of the vishaya. What are they? Asatva, not real. It is only an appearance. Whatever that you are chasing is only an appearance, and therefore asatva, and therefore tuchatva. Hey, it is since it is not only not real, it is an appearance. It is not truly there also. So tuchatva, and then it also will cause bondage. Bandhakatva buddhya. Three things: asatva, tuchatva, and bandhakatva. Buddhya ragadveshabhyam viyojitaihi. Thus, when one is able to see these three things in the objects of the world, what? Asatvam, tuchatvam, and bandhakatvam. These are the three things. Ragadveshabhyam viyojitaihi. This is how the ragadveshas will be neutralized, will be made ineffectual. And when would the ragadveshas be completely eradicated? Param drishtva. Param drishtva nivartate. Also it is said, Vishayan charan. With such indriyas, now Vishayan charan does not mean that he indulges in the world. Please. And again, yesterday, day before, I have said this is no form of justification for the hedonistic ideas. Okay, khao piyo mauj karo. No, it is not that. Khao piyo mauj karo is not a philosophy. This is not what Shri Krishna Bhagavan is saying. Okay, Vishayan means annarasadin. And annarasadin, how? Shankaranandji makes it extremely clear. He said, anishiddhan. Bhagavan Bhashyakara said, that which is unavoidable. Avarjaniya, which cannot be avoided, or those vishayas. Anishiddhan, that which has not been prohibited by the Shastra. Tatrapi pranatrana matra pariyaptan. And Shankaranji is a very strict teacher. And do not be afraid of their strictness, because their strictness, their straightforwardness is indeed the greatest benediction that you will find. You know, we find somebody, a teacher or someone is very kind because, and that kindness we measure because the ego is appeased by them, cajoled by them. Okay, never mind. Even if you are like this, you still are enlightened. But a teacher who's strict and who's going to tell you the truth, he truly has compassion. And so he will say, no, you are wrong. Okay. So instead of being, scared of teachers like this, we should be thankful to them, because they, without any hesitation, are able to show us the reality. They do not paint and present it, sugarcoat it and bring it. So here he says, Tatrapi pranatrana matra parayaptan. Even with those annarasadin, avarjaniyan, anishiddhan, how? For the sake of maintaining the body. So now the food, etc., is taken not for appeasement of ego or appeasement of senses. So sense appeasement and ego appeasement is not the way of a seeker, because sense appeasement and ego appeasement is totally absent in the sthita prajna. We see this. This lakshanam of the siddha now gives us the guidance, direction for our sadhana. So there it goes. Prana trana matra parayaptan. Now, what has he attained? Because his indriyas no longer are being under the slavery of ragadveshas, and yet even if he is dealing with the world, the prasadam, samadhim anutishtataha prasadam, the tranquility, the calmness, the inner peace, the joy is always present with such a person. And thus, with a mind which is so tranquil, with a mind which is so calm, because all the conflicts are resolved, there are no more conflicts. Such a person with this prasad, now what happens to him? He may have a calm mind, he may have a very peaceful mind, his indriyas are not running amok. But what would happen? So here is the answer. With that prasad, what happens? With such clarity and tranquility, what happens? In the next shloka, let us read this, number 65. Prasade sarva dukkhanam, prasade sarva dukkhanam, hanerasyopajaayate, hanerasyopajaayate, prasannachetaso jyashu, prasannachetaso jyashu, buddhih paryavatishthate, buddhih paryavatishthate. For the person whose mind is at peace, for the person whose mind is with peace and clarity, because it is peaceful, now the knowledge will not be distorted. It will not become murky, it will not become muddy. Okay, so the knowledge is clean and clear like the water of Ganga in Sharad Ritu, in this autumn season. For the person whose mind is thus peaceful, tranquil, destruction of all the sorrows take place for him. Okay, destruction of all the sorrows. Sarva dukkhanam hanihi. Asya of this person upajayate is born, takes place. And prasanna chetasaha, the one whose mind is thus peaceful, what happens? His buddhi, his understanding is able to settle in the Supreme, in Paramatma, will soon be well established. Okay? So the mind of such a tranquil person soon becomes well established. Where? Well established. Paryavatishthate, from all angles, from all sides, is able to settle in Paramatma. Okay, that is important. So we know that prasad is a very important quality which should arrive. And how does this prasad come in our life? When the indriyas are disassociated from raga dvesha. Okay, then prasada comes. Prasadam adhikachati. And how do these raga dveshas go away? By seeing the defects. There is a technical term to see the defects of vishayas. It is called as pratipaksha bhavana. It is called as pratipaksha bhavana. Okay. So now prasada has taken place, and with this prasada, even the sorrows or all those complaints which we have had about people and situations of our childhood, of our adulthood, he was like this, my parents didn't treat me well, or the teachers in the school, or the friends, or somebody who ditched me, all these complaints with which the mind is living will be resolved, will be destroyed. Prasade Sat, this is what brings this about, not some psychotherapy. What brings this about? The cause is prasada. How has that prasada come? Because the raga dveshas have gone away. How did these raga dveshas get resolved? One is through the pratipaksha bhavana, that it is asatvam, tucham, and bandhaka. It is going to cause bondage. It will forcefully put me into sorrow. When you are able to see that it can become the cause of my sorrow, now or some dukkham, naturally the person moves away from it, which means that the dvesha is resolved. Okay, so here we go. Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirasyopachayate. Bhagavan Bhashyakara says, prasade sati kim syad iti uchyate. So let the prasada take place. Now we understand the meaning of what prasada means. That tranquility, the calmness which has come into the person's life. So let the mind be calm. Even if the mind is calm, what happens with that? There is that akanksha. There is a desire to know with this prasada what would happen. So he says, prasade sati kim syad iti uchyate. That is being told to us by Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Sarva dukkhanam hanihi upajayate. Kasya asya. Now that for whom does this even take place? Destruction of all the sorrows due to presence of prasad. Asya, Bhagavan Bhashyakara says, yatehe. Of this sannyasi. Now you see, there is this greatness of renunciation. Sarva dukkhanam. What is sarva dukkhanam? Of all the dukkhas? Whether these are the dukkhas that you carry as your memory from the childhood, or the insults which have happened and the losses that you have suffered in the adulthood, are we just talking about that? Because this word sarva should be able to bring under its umbrella whatever that can be brought under it. It should convey to you. So therefore, Bhagavan Bhashakara says, Adhyatmikanam, of all the three types of dukkhas. Adhyatmika, Adidaivika, and Adibhautika. Those dukkhas which are caused by the physical elements around us. Those dukkhas which are caused by our own body, mind complex is Adhyatmika. And certain dukkhas over which you have no control at all. Those dukkhas, situations, the cold, the earthquake, famine, drought, pandemic, these are all Adidaivika dukkhas. Okay, so Adhyatmikanam, then Adidaivikanam, Adibhautikanam dukkhanam, Sarva dukkhanam hanihi. Hanihi, vinashaha. What is hani means? Just not loss. Hani means vinash, the total destruction. Vinashaha. Nashaha, Bhagavan Bhashakara is also not satisfied just saying nashaha. He says vinashaha. Vishesha rupena means nishesha rupena nashaha jayate. Katham jayate? Prasade sati. And then buddhi paryavatishthate. The buddhi, then the person whose mind is thus calm, his buddhi settles in Paramatma, becomes well established, because the question over here is Sthita Prajna, the one whose buddhi is established in Paramatma. Who is he whose prajna is established in Paramatma? So he says, the one who has prasad. Prasade sati. Paryavatishthate. Paryavatishthate means Akasham iva parisamantadavatishthate. Just like the space surrounds you from all the sides, everywhere. Akasham iva. He gives an example. Akasham iva paryavatishthate. Samantadavatishthate. And what is that finally paryavatishthate meaning? Atmaswarupena eva nishchali bhavati. Becomes, now there is no doubt, there is no viparita bhavana also, and now aham brahmaiti, that I am Brahman, this understanding remains without any instability. There is no tremor in it, no shaking of that buddhi. Nishchali bhavati, becomes absolutely stable. But how stable? Atmaswarupena eva. Evam prasanna chetaso avasthita buddhehe kritakrityata yataha tasmad ragadvesha vyuktaihi indriyaihi shastra viruddheshu avarjaniyeshu juktaha samachared iti vakyarthaha. So now Bhagavan Bhashakara in the earlier shloka, he said avarjaniyan vishayan charan, that the buddhi of when the indriyas move about in the world, he says, in which vishayas do this the person moves about? He says avarjaniya, means that what is unavoidable. If it is a cold day, it is a cold day. What can your skin do about it? It is going to detect it is a cold day. If it is a hot day, the skin is going to detect there is a heat. What are you going to do about it? So he says, aversion, it looks like unavoidable. But remember, there are certain things which will fall under the category of that is naturally unavoidable. And there is something that is unavoidable where there is a little element of choice. Food is something that one must take. unavoidable. But what kind of food and when and how much, there is a choice. So therefore, there is always a choice. And so he makes it clear over here. Let us see how. Evam prasanna chetasaha, that's a person who is endowed with a mind which is tranquil, which is peaceful. Prasanna chetasaha, avasthita buddhehe, the one whose mind is now settled in Paramatma. Kritakrityata, he attains fulfillment, which means, just notice this thing. Whenever we hit the pillow at night, what is the thought that you carry? We carry, yeah, this should have happened. This is still yet to happen. I will do this tomorrow. And every moment for the jnani, how is it? Whatever has to be done is done. There is nothing more to do, nothing more to see. I am fulfilled. And therefore, the satisfaction is up to the brim. In fact, it is overflowing. So his satisfaction is, his joy is overflowing over here. And so, avasthita buddhehe kritakrityata yataha tasmat ragat. And therefore, now what is the conclusion of this whole discussion? So this is the sangraha vakya. Okay, in that sangraha vakya means the conclusion, everything is put together. What do they call? Essence is extracted. Tasmad ragadvesha viyuktaihi indriyaihi shastra viruddheshu avarjaniyeshu. He says unavoidable means shastra viruddheshu, aviruddheshu. That which is not only just sanctioned by the Shastra, but it also should not, it is not in any way disregarding the sanction of the Shastra. So it is not an escape, an excuse. So it is like this. Shastra viruddheshu avarjaniyeshu yuktaha samacharet. The person who is endowed with yoga, now who wants to follow, and that yoga means who is samahitaha, the one who has brought the indriyas under control. Samacharet. This is how he moves about in the world. And this is the Siddha Lakshanam. And that what is Siddha Lakshanam is the sadhanam for the sadhaka. So Samacharet iti vakyarthaha. This is how one should live in life. This is how one should draw his map of sadhana. Let him draw. Now let us look at few things that Anandagiri has to give from Bhagavan Bhashyakara. Sarva dukha paryavatishthate, buddhi paryavatishthate. Bhashyakara says the buddhi is, the mind of such a person is well established in Paramatma from all the sides. And he gives you an example like the space, like the sky. So to this he says, Sarva dukkha hanya buddhi swasthyapi prakritam prajnastairyam katham siddham bhavati. Are bhai, even if the person attains tranquility of the mind, our question, Arjuna's question is, how does the prajnastairyam take place? The Arjuna's question is, how will this mind become well established in Paramatma? This is the question. And you are talking about prasad. The mind will become peaceful. Let the mind become peaceful, but if that peaceful mind is also, if not established in Paramatma, what is the use of such a peaceful mind? Peaceful, because somebody can murder also very peacefully. Then what is the point of such a peaceful? Here he says, Sarva dukkha hanya. It is because the prajnastairyam katham siddham bhavati is answered over here. Because when all the complaints whatever complaints that one had, dukkha's, sorrows of any kind, or what do they call the granthi, the complexes that one has developed from this life, earlier lives, childhood, everything. When that is resolved, what happens? Sarva dukkhanya buddhi swasthe. When the buddhi becomes settled in itself, for such a buddhi, it is possible to stay steady in Paramatma. And that happens to prasad, and therefore prasad is being discussed over here. Okay. Siddham, katham siddham bhavati, this is the answer. And so katham siddham bhavati is the question, to which prasade sarva dukkhanam is the answer. Yuktaha. Okay. Where did Bhagavan Bhashyakara say Yuktaha? Yuktaha 7a. Prasanna chetasaha avasthita buddhehe kritakrityata yataha tasmad ragattvesha vyuktaihi indriyaihi shastra viruddheshu avarjaniyeshu yuktaha samacharet iti vakyarthaha. Yuktaha, the one who is endowed with yoga. Yukta. That means samahitaha, the one who is well collected, the one who is not lost, scattered. Such a person, samahitaha, means what? What do you mean by that samahitaha? Anandagiri throws more light on that. And he says, Vishaya paravashya shunyaha, the one who is no longer under the slavery of the Vishayas. Vishaya paravashya. The one who is no longer under the mastery or the spell of those, the Vishayas do not hold any control over such a person. Shunya, at level 0. Okay. Vishaya paravashya shunyaha is the meaning of word samahitaha, yuktaha. Ramaraya Kavi now is going to give us some more light. Satchidananda Lakshanatma Tadatmya Adhyasad Antakaranasya Atmaswarupatva Labha. This is more technical. Now what? And this is good. Do we have time? Fine. Then let's see this. Now he says, because there are certain teachers like even Krishnamurti saying, oh well, this is thought replacement. This is what? Thought replacement. And we are saying this is not just thought replacement. What happens? And so what? Now look at this. This is in a way an answer to Krishnamurti's thought replacement thing. Now, the one who is seeing the snake in the rope, so he has the thought, this is a snake. Then when the light is switched on, he has yet another thought, this is a rope. Both of them are thoughts. What is the difference between both? When the thought, this is a rope, arises and replaces the earlier thought, this is a snake, can you say that the thought, this is a rope, is also equally heya? Heya means it is also equally avoidable, like the thought, this is a snake. This is knowledge, and that is superimposition. And therefore, just calling it a thought replacement is not justified. It is underestimating the value of knowledge. Having a silent mind like the mind in the samadhi has its own importance, and we will discuss this because Shankarananda Swami again and again is going to bring the topic of Samadhi. But Samadhi is not an option for knowledge. Samadhi cannot become an option for knowledge. Let us understand this. There is a person who is seeing the snake, and therefore he is frightened. He is intimidated by that snake. And so he said, now since I am intimidated by the snake, I will sit in Samadhi. So obviously now he goes into Samadhi. He goes in Samadhi, there is no thought. And therefore there is no thought even this is a snake. There is no thought this is a snake, therefore there is no fear also that is generated by that thought. So that karyam is also not there, karanam is not there, karyam is also not there. But when he wakes up from this samadhi, again this is a snake. Now that becomes available again. And therefore, though in the samadhi kala, though in that period of absorption, there was no experience of dukkham and fear, yet when he comes out of it, it will again be a present. The dukkham is again present, and therefore samadhi is not an option to knowledge, nor is samadhi something that you should say, is what do they say, greater than knowledge. Over here, therefore, it is not even thought replacement, and it is not even saying that it is something of less value than samadhi. In fact, the samadhi abhyasa is also meant for the tridhata, for the well-establishment of the knowledge. Let that be very, very well understood. Now, keeping not exactly this is the topic that Ramaraya Kavi wants to bring out, but he is saying that look here, the mind which gets identified with the body and senses, etc. And now, therefore, there is this experience that I am a man, I am a woman, I am, seeing, I am walking, I am talking. This is possible. So also, on the other hand, mind, which is anatma vastu, gets identified with Atma, with Brahman, and now says Aham Brahma. So in both the cases, these are adhyasas. In both the cases, just as there is an adhyasa, there is a superimposition of the body and senses over here in the mind. So also the mind now getting identified with Brahman, that is also adhyasa. When you are going to say Aham Brahma, that is also vritti. Now in this case, sir, what is that paryavatishthate? Why that is there? So Sachidananda Lakshana Atma Tadatmya Adhyasad Antakaranasya Atma Swarupatva Lakaha. How will this Antakarana attain Atma Swarupam? Because it is the nature of the mind, so that vritti is also created. This vritti, the thought, Aham Brahma, is important. That is upadeyam for us. So sarva dukkha, Sachidananda Lakshana Atma Tadatmya Adhyasad Antakaranasya Atma Swarupatva Labha. Because it is this vritti which will destroy the avidya. It is the vritti which destroys the avidya. If the ghatakara vritti does not take place, no doubt it is an adhyasa, but it will be required. So, and this is what is called as Atma Swarupatva Labha. This labha, this gain is called as Paryavatishthate, Bhagavan Krishna. This is called as Paryavatishthate. Sarva Dukkhanam Hanihi Upajayate. Destruction of all the dukkhas. What are all the dukkhas? Adhyatmikanam, to which Ramaraya Kavi adds Ajnana Vilasitanam. Nothing but it is a play of the avidya, of the ignorance. What are these dukkhas? Nothing but the play, opulence of the ignorance. Ajnana Vilasitanam. Yasmat prasanna chetasaha yatehe shighrameva buddhihi brahmatmaikyakara paryavatishthate. And therefore, because of the presence of the prasad, soon, without any much delay, the buddhi, his understanding, his mind, his antakaranam, now what will happen? Brahmani paryavatishthate, goes and sits in Paramatma. Samantadavatishthate, sthira bhavati. That sthira bhavati means what, sir? He says, viparita bhavanadi pratibandha bhavan. Because sthira bhavati means because there are no obstacles, pratibandha, absence of obstacles like viparita bhavana. Now he is able to stay stable in Paramatma. So prasad, which is brought about by what? The indriyas which are free from raga dveshas. What is the freedom from raga dvesha? It means what? It has come through the pratipaksha bhavana. And then finally, again and again, when the buddhi goes and sees Paramatma, param drishtva nivartate, this takes place. And when there is such a prasad, the mind with such a quality, with such tranquility, where all the issues are resolved, such a mind now permanently stays in Paramatma. And that staying in Paramatma means like what? Not, somebody staying in some room or some apartment. It simply means it gets dissolved. Layaha. Tasya yatehe dukkhanam hanihi upajayate. Shankaranandi ji ka, Madhusudan Saraswati, that's okay. Nityam samadhi nishtaya cha indriyana manasascha shuddhi lakshanam prasadam sampaditavataha vidushaha tat siddhe phalamaha atra dukkha shabdena tat hetavaha vikshepaha lakshante. Shankarananji says, by the word dukkham, all the dukkhas are destroyed. What are those dukkhas actually? They are nothing but disturbances, distractions, vikshepaha, lakshante. Tesham vikshepanam hanihi. Hani means nishesha nivrittihi, total eradication. Tataha shigrameva prasanna chetaso nirmalatmanaha tasya buddhi sarva brahmadarshini prajna pratisthita bhavati. Thus, without any delay, this buddhi now becomes stable. Arjuna's question is thus answered. Now we will see what comes further is because Bhagavan Shri Krishna wants to give a Vyatireka Drishtanta. And so we will see what is that when we meet next. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnaat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. Om Shanta Shanta Shanti Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashyakritau Vande Bhagavanto Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha. Thank you all. Thank you very much.